I am, therefore I think. It's the kind of phrase that just, it feels like bedrock, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I mean, it's a riff on Descartes,
Yeah.
right? Cogito, ergo sum, I think. Therefore I am.
Right. And we all just sort of assume our existence comes first, that it precedes our thoughts.
Exactly. I am a person, I exist, I'm sitting here in this room, and because I exist, I have these memories, these ideas. It feels solid.
Yeah, it implies that the self is a container,
Mm,
you know, a solid vessel, and memories are just the water we pour into it.
right.
But the book we're talking about today, John Banville's Birchwood, it just takes a sledgehammer to that idea in the very first sentence.
Oh, it really does. He just flips it completely on its head.
Mhm.
He's suggesting that the thing we call our identity is actually just a byproduct of the thinking,
Right.
or more specifically of the remembering.
Mhm.
I mean, if you stripped away all the stories you tell yourself,
Mhm.
about your childhood, about your family,
Mhm.
would you even still exist?
Or are we just what, a collection of firing neurons trying to make sense of the dark?
That is the terrifying question at the heart of this novel. And it throws you right into the deep end from line 1.
It really does. We aren't just reading a story about a guy named Gabriel Godkin. We are watching a man try to build a self literally out of rubble. He's scavenging through the wreckage of his past, trying to glue all these broken pieces together just to prove that he exists at all.
And it is a very, very strange and murky pool he's swimming in. So today we are unpacking John Banville's novel, Birchwood.
Mhm.
Well, let me just say, if you think Irish literature just means sad people looking at rain, you should probably buckle up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because this isn't just a story about a guy remembering his childhood. It is a wild ride through a crumbling Irish estate, a Gothic family drama that makes, I don't know, the Addams Family look like the Brady Bunch.
And a traveling circus that might just be a total hallucination. We don't know.
We don't know. It's a fascinating text published back in the early 70s, and it really represents this kind of watershed moment in Irish writing, I think.
It really does. It takes the Big House novel, which is, a staple of Irish literature, and it just turns it completely inside out. It blends actual history with this rich, pitch black comedy.
Rich black comedy is putting it so mildly. I mean, there are exploding grandmothers in this book.
There are. We do have spontaneous combustion.
We'll get to that.
Oh, we will. We are going to spend a significant amount of time on the spontaneous combustion, I promise you. But before we get to the pyrotechnics, we have to understand the premise here. We're following a protagonist named Gabriel Godkin.
Gabriel Godkin. It's a great name. It sounds almost biblical, but just a little bit off.
It is. And Gabriel is living in the ruins of his family estate, Birchwood. He tells us right at the start, he says he works on the house not because he expects guests.
He says that would be a laugh.
Right, which is so sad. But he does it because he's looking for a reason for his labors buried somewhere. He's a man trying to reconstruct his life, his entire being, through memory.
But the mission of this deep dive isn't just to recap the plot, is it? We want to get at what Banville is really saying about memory itself. Because Gabriel admits, pretty early on, that memory is not a photograph. It's not a documentary.
Exactly. He calls it a mosaic. And this is the key. He says, we imagine that we remember things as they were, while in fact all we carry into the future are fragments which reconstruct a wholly illusory past.
A wholly illusory past. That's the whole game right there. The Birchwood we're exploring is Gabriel's Birchwood, a reconstruction made of bits and scraps and dusty violets and old love letters.
Let's pause on that concept of the mosaic for just a second, because I think it's so crucial for anyone listening to really grasp before we step inside the house.
Okay.
When you think of a puzzle, you think of something with one definitive solution, right? All the pieces fit together one way. If you force them, you break them.
Sure.
But a mosaic is completely different. It's an artistic creation. You take broken shards, colored glass, stone, whatever, and you arrange them to create an image.
But the gaps between the pieces are still visible.
They're visible, and more importantly, the pattern is a choice. You choose how to arrange the pieces. Gabriel is taking the shards of his trauma, his family's insane history, the things he wishes had happened, and he's arranging them into a picture that finally makes sense to him.
So as we go through this story, we have to constantly be asking ourselves, is this what actually happened? Or is this just the pattern that Gabriel needs to see right now to survive?
That is the lens. That is the only lens through which we can view everything in this book. The horror, the humor, the tragedy, it is all filtered through this desperate human need to create meaning out of absolute chaos.
Okay, with that lens firmly in place, let's walk through the front door, or, what's left of the front door. Let's talk about Section 1, the House of Godkin.
The house it's almost a character in itself. I mean, that's a cliche, but here it's so true. It's not just a setting, it's a living, breathing, or maybe more accurately, a dying entity. When Gabriel describes finding it or, returning to it after his journey, he calls it lawless.
Lawless. That's such a specific and strange word for a building. It implies that the rules of civilization, of physics even, have just stopped working there.
They have, and the sensory details he uses, they just back that up completely. He talks about windows that are blinded with light, a broken fountain, dead leaves piled up in the library. But it's the smells. The smells are what really get me.
Oh, the smells are so visceral. He talks about the smell of old love letters, dusty violets.
And unnameable things that he has to sweep away.
Ugh. Yeah. It just feels like a place where it hasn't just stopped. It's rotted. It feels so claustrophobic.
It's the theme of decay, but on a massive scale. And this brings us right to that big house trope I mentioned earlier. For listeners who might not be steeped in Irish history, the big house was the symbol of the Anglo-Irish landed gentry.
So the colonizers, basically.
Essentially, yes. Or their descendants. They lived in these huge isolated mansions, completely cut off from the local Irish population. And by the time we get to this story, which seems to be set vaguely in the late 19th or maybe early 20th century, though time is very fluid in this book.
Very fluid.
That class is in a state of terminal decline.
So the rotting house isn't just about a bad handyman or neglect. It's a symbol for an entire social class that's just falling apart. The slates are sliding off the roof because the power structure that held them up is completely gone.
Precisely. And the family inside is falling apart even faster. Which brings us to the central conflict. The Godkins versus the Lawlesses.
It sounds like a wrestling match card.
It basically is. It's a blood feud written into the very DNA of the estate. The backstory is that the Lawless family originally owned Birchwood. Then Gabriel's great-great-grandfather, and also named Gabriel Godkin, arrives out of nowhere, a total mystery man. He marries a lawless Beatrice, and then ruthlessly, methodically takes over the whole estate. But to understand the true darkness at the heart of this family, the real original sin, we have to look at the historical context, specifically the Great Famine. There's this one anecdote about Joseph Lawless, the original owner.
This part actually gave me chills. It's so brief, but my God, it lands hard.
It's a defining moment. It explains everything. So during the height of the potato famine, a commissioner comes to Joseph Lawless and tells him that his tenants are starving to death. People are literally dying in ditches on his land.
Right.
And Joseph Lawless's reaction is to just roar, "A trick, sir!" Another of their tricks.
That is, I mean, it's beyond cruel. It's almost sociopathic.
It is absolute pure cynicism. He cannot conceive of the peasantry as human beings who are capable of suffering. In his mind, they are just adversaries, always trying to cheat him out of rent or sympathy. It establishes this profound disconnect, this cruelty that just runs through the entire history of the estate. The house is built on a foundation of that cruelty.
And that cruelty just trickles down through the generations like poison. It's like a genetic defect. Which brings us to Gabriel's parents. His father, Joseph Godkin, and his mother, Beatrice Lawless. Even their marriage is this weird, cold battleground.
It is. Joseph Godkin, the father, is a fantastic character study in disintegration. He's described as this dark, drinking man with a fierce, cold grin and a gold tooth.
That gold tooth is such a great detail.
It is. He's violent, but also weirdly detached from everything. He has this phrase he repeats over and over to Gabriel: "Nothing. Say it."
Nothing. Say it. What is he even trying to do there? Is he trying to force Gabriel to admit that their lives are just empty, that it all means nothing?
I think so. I think he's a complete nihilist. He looks at the crumbling house, the starving tenants, his mad wife, and he just sees a complete void. And he's desperate for Gabriel to stare into that void with him. He wants company in his misery.
And then there's Beatrice, the mother. She's a lawless, so she's technically from the losing side of the family history, even though she's married to the master of the house. Why on earth did she marry him?
Well, according to Gabriel's reconstruction, she married him for a romanticized notion of his mute, savage anguish.
Mute, savage anguish. That sounds like the kind of thing you read in a bad romance novel and think is incredibly sexy until you actually have to live with it day in and day out.
Exactly. She thought she could save him or that his deep, silent pain made him profound. But she very quickly realizes that living with that kind of sickness isn't romantic at all. It just curdles into irritation and then revulsion.
And she gets completely marginalized in her own home.
Completely. She descends into what Gabriel describes as this kind of whimsical madness. She just fades.
The visual of her is so striking. She starts wearing Granny Godkin's old clothes, these dusty, ancient evening gowns that are way too short for her, and she just sort of fades into the background of the house. She becomes a ghost before she's even dead.
She becomes another part of the ruin, just another piece of dusty, broken furniture that Gabriel has to navigate around.
You mentioned Granny Godkin. We absolutely have to talk about the grandparents, because this is where the book really shifts gears into something else entirely. Section 2 of our outline calls this Gothic comedy, and I think we need to define that term, because Gothic usually means scary, and comedy means funny. How do those two things work together here?
It's a great question, and the key, I think, is the concept of the grotesque. When people hear that word, they usually just think ugly or gross. But in literature, specifically in Irish Gothic literature, it means something more specific. The grotesque is about distortion. It's when a character is exaggerated to the point where they become a caricature, but, and this is the important part, they still elicit this weird mix of empathy and disgust. They're funny and horrifying at the exact same time.
So it's that feeling of laughing at something but feeling a little bit sick to your stomach while you do it.
That is it, precisely. And the poster child for that dynamic is Granny Godkin. She is a force of nature, a wild old woman who is constantly battling for control of the house from her bedroom. She hates the lawless side of the family. She fights with her son Joseph. She fights with everyone.
But her death.
Yeah.
Her death is the moment where the book really signals to the reader, okay, anything can happen here. The laws of physics are now optional.
It's true.
She dies by spontaneous combustion.
She does indeed.
In the summer house. Now, we have to walk the listener through this because the way Banville writes it, it's not some big action movie explosion. It's disturbingly quiet and mundane.
It is. Gabriel enters the summer house. There's no fire damage to the walls. The windows aren't blown out. There's just a charred circle on the floor.
The boots.
And the boots. Her feet are still there, perfectly preserved inside her scorched button boots.
Okay, that is an image that will stay with you forever. It's so cartoonish, like something out of Looney Tunes where Wile E. Coyote gets blown up. But in the context of this rotting, realistic house, it's just horrifying. A human being reduced to ash and footwear.
But here's where the comedy part of Gothic comedy kicks in. How does the family react to this supernatural event? Do they scream? Do they call the police? Do they weep for their lost matriarch?
No, of course not. They're worried about what the neighbors will think.
Exactly. They are terrified of the scandal. They don't want the town gossiping about the bizarre nature of her death. So what do? They hold a funeral, a proper, respectable funeral.
And there's this incredible, deeply absurd image of the family burying Granny Godkin's feet in a full-size coffin.
It's a complete ruse. It is performative grief over a box that is 95% empty space and 5% scorched ankles.
It encapsulates the entire Godkin existence, doesn't it? They're performing normalcy over a void. They're pretending to be a respectable family while literally standing over a charred circle where their grandmother exploded.
And Granda Godkin isn't exactly the pillar of stability either.
No, he is not.
Granda Godkin is senile and mischievous. He's essentially a child trapped in an old man's body, but Gabriel has this one distinct memory of him that feels different from the others, the bicycle lesson.
Oh, right. The moment of flying.
It's this incredibly rare moment of genuine connection in the book. Granda pushes Gabriel on a bike, and for a split second, Gabriel feels that lift, that weightlessness. He escapes the gravity of Birchwood.
But then, of course,
he crashes, and Granda twists his hip.
It's the pattern of the entire book, isn't it? A tiny moment of freedom or beauty followed immediately by pain and absurdity and Granda's death.
Well, it certainly rivals Granny's for sheer weirdness.
He escapes the house. He just runs off to the woods in the middle of the night. They find him dead by a tree.
But not just lying there peacefully.
No, not at all. His false teeth were found sunk to the gums in the bark of the tree.
He bit the tree. He bit the tree. It's this final, feral, desperate act. It's almost like the Godkin madness makes them want to consume the land itself or just fight it until the bitter end. He dies fighting a birch tree.
So the grandparents are gone. One exploded, one fought a tree to a draw. The parents are basically ghosts. And then the black sheep arrives, Aunt Martha, and she brings her son, Michael.
This changes the whole dynamic of the house completely. Aunt Martha is Joseph's sister, And she was kicked out years ago for some unnamed transgression. She returns with Michael, who is Gabriel's cousin. But structurally, in the novel, Michael is much more than that. He's Gabriel's foil, his opposite.
How so? Because Gabriel is our narrator. He's emotional, he's messy, he's lost in his own head. What is Michael?
Michael is cold. He's precise. He's detached. And most importantly, he is a juggler.
A juggler. Okay, let's unpack the symbolism there.
Right.
Why is juggling so important?
Well, think about what juggling actually represents. It's the imposition of perfect order onto the chaos of gravity. It's about keeping things in the air, creating flawless patterns, creating a temporary, beautiful harmony. Gabriel watches Michael juggle, and he is absolutely mesmerized. He sees that harmony. He sees the realization that disparate things, random objects, can hang together if you just have enough control.
So Michael represents the control and order that Gabriel completely lacks in his own life.
Yes. But it's not a happy control. The book says Michael has a knot of thorns in his heart. He's deeply unhappy. The juggling, the control, it's all a defense mechanism. They share a birthday, which suggests they're doubles, or spiritual twins in a way. But there's this uneasy, heavy silence between them. They just circle each other like planets.
It really seems like every single person in this family is a caricature. They're grotesques, as you said. But Gabriel is trying to grow up in the middle of this madhouse. Which brings us to section 3, coming of age. Because he does try to learn about the world. He does try to become a person.
He does. And Aunt Martha, the black sheep, takes over his education. And it is chaotic homeschooling at its absolute finest. She decides to teach him geography.
But she doesn't use a textbook or an atlas.
No, of course not. She reads him Jules Verne novels.
So he's learning about the world from around the world in 80 days.
Precisely. Can you imagine if your entire understanding of global geography and culture came from 19th century science fiction? Gabriel learns that the world is a place of grand adventure, impossible fantasy, and strange, miraculous machines.
It's just reinforcing his tendency to see the world as a story, as a mosaic, rather than a set of hard, concrete facts. He's being primed from childhood to reject reality.
But reality has a way of crashing in, especially when you hit puberty. We have to talk about the romance in this book, or, the awkward, clumsy attempts at it. First, there's Rosie.
Rosie, the peasant girl. And this is where that class divide we talked about earlier comes crashing right back in. Gabriel is the young master of the big house, even if the roof is leaking all over him. Rosie calls him and his whole family swanks.
Swanks, it's such a great word. It just cuts right through all their Gothic pretension, doesn't it?
It does. And Gabriel tries to seduce her, but he does it in the most Gabriel way imaginable. He tries to impress her with algebra. Let X equal how much I like you and Y equal.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny, but it's also deeply tragic. It shows that he has no real language for human connection. He only has the abstract, the theoretical. And later, when he reflects on it, remember, it's all a mosaic. He contrasts his idealized memory of Rosie, this golden, beautiful figure, with the grubby reality. He forces himself to remember her dirty fingernails and her sausage curls.
It's the two sides of the tile, the shiny, perfect side and the rough, real side. And then there's the encounter with Mag in the dairy.
That scene is much more visceral. It's all about contrasting the white fragrance of the clean, cool dairy with the clumsy biological reality of sexual awakening. It isn't romanticized at all. It's confused and awkward and messy. Banville is just a master at stripping away all the nostalgia from childhood memories. He forces us and Gabriel to look at the awkwardness in the dirt.
And while all these fumbles in the hay are happening, the world outside the estate is actually burning. We touched on the famine earlier, but by the time Gabriel's a teenager, there's active rebellion in the countryside.
The backdrop is this constant land agitation. The tenants are rising up. There's a fantastic line in the text, the whores are on horseback.
That is such a vivid image. It implies the entire social order has been turned upside down.
Exactly. The people who are supposed to be at the bottom are now riding high. And there are specific, terrifying threats. A chicken is nailed to the front door of Birchwood.
It's a classic Gothic warning. This is what happens to things that live in this house.
And Papa Joseph is out in the field shooting at poachers. The gardener, a man named Noctur, just disappears one day to join the movement. The estate is literally shrinking because Papa is selling off parcels of land to the rebels to a man named Gattern just to keep the house going for another month.
That is the ultimate irony, isn't it? They are selling the very ground beneath their feet to the people who want to overthrow them just to buy another bottle of whiskey.
It's a suicide pact disguised as a lifestyle. It's the end of their world in slow motion.
And that brings us to the climax of the first half of the book. Section 4, the fire and the departure. Everything seems to be building to some kind of breaking point.
The house itself is deteriorating rapidly. Slates are falling off the roof, ceilings are collapsing. But Gabriel, our narrator, is distracted. He's discovered a secret. Or, more accurately, he's created one for himself.
The photograph.
The photograph, right. He finds this old photo of a little girl in a white dress. Now, his mother, Beatrice, tells him flat out, "That is a picture of me when I was a child."
But Gabriel refuses to believe her.
He can't believe her. He convinces himself through a series of logical leaps and bounds that this is his lost twin sister.
Why? Why does he need a sister so badly at this moment?
He needs a double. He needs someone out there in the world who understands him, someone who completes his broken mosaic.
Yeah.
He constructs this entire elaborate quest in his head that he has a stolen twin who is out there waiting for him to find her. It gives him a purpose beyond just sweeping up dust in a dying house. It gives him a reason to leave.
And then the haystack catches fire.
It's a huge, dramatic set piece. Rosie is allegedly the one who sets it on fire, maybe as an act of revenge or just pure rebellion. But the central image, the one that just stops your heart, is Aunt Martha.
Aunt Martha walks into the fire.
She does. But notice how Gabriel describes it. He doesn't describe it as a horrific tragedy. He says it's a moment of pure theatricality.
Theatricality?
Yes. He and one of the firemen are standing there, watching her walk towards the flames, and Gabriel says, "I thought that he giggled."
Wait, the fireman giggled.
Mm-hmm.
While a woman was walking into a burning building.
Gabriel thinks he did. Whether he actually did or not is irrelevant. It just underscores the completely surreal nature of tragedy in Birchwood. Everything feels like a performance. Gabriel thinks she's acting. He thinks she's playing some kind of elaborate game right up until the moment she doesn't come back out.
That is so deeply disturbing. It suggests that Gabriel's mind is so detached from reality that he can't even process death as a real thing. He sees it all as theater.
And in the chaos of the fire, as the hayshed collapses, Michael the juggler cousin, the cold one, delivers the parting shot.
He's hiding in the dark garden, and he just says, "They have your sister Gabriel."
Oh, the catalyst. It's the line that changes everything.
And that is the final push Gabriel needed. He leaves Birchwood, he grabs a rucksack and just walks away from the smoking ruins of his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the novel just shifts gears completely. We leave the claustrophobic Gothic house, and we enter. What do we enter?
We enter the picaresque.
Okay, another literary term for us. Let's define picaresque.
A picaresque novel is a genre that usually follows a roguish hero. A picaro of a low social class who has to live by his wits in a corrupt society. It's almost always episodic, one adventure after another on the road.
So like Don Quixote or Huckleberry Finn.
Exactly. Gabriel transforms from the Gothic heir, trapped in one place, into the wandering rogue. He's on the road.
And like any good road trip story, he immediately meets a very colorful cast of characters. He joins Prospero's magic circus.
Although Prospero himself is missing. He's this mythical figure like Godot who's always just over the next hill but never actually appears. The circus is run by a man named Silas.
Silas, the ringmaster. Describe him for us.
Oh, Silas is fantastic. He's described as a Turk. He's fat, he's grandiose, he's always sweating. He gives these huge, bombastic speeches about the power of the will. He has this philosophy that if you will something hard enough, if you believe it enough, you can make it true.
Which sounds a lot like Gabriel's philosophy of memory, doesn't it? If I remember it this way, I can make it true.
Exactly. Silas is a mirror for Gabriel, in a way. He's a total charlatan, but he's a surprisingly lovable one.
And the rest of the troupe is just as motley as the Godkin family ever was.
It's a whole new cast of grotesques. You have Rainbird, the dwarf, who wears a perfectly tailored gray suit and acts as a scout for the circus. You have Mario, the new juggler, with bandits' black eyes and a very, very crude view of women. There are the twins, Ada and Ida. One is gentle and sweet, the other is vicious and cruel. There's Sybil, a flame-haired woman who is Silas's very unlikely wife. And then there's Magnus, the clown, with the perpetually mournful grin.
It's like a funhouse mirror version of a family.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabriel fits right in. He even gets a stage name.
He does. Johann Levelb.
Johann Levelb.
Hmm.
Is that an anagram for something?
It's close to John Banville if you squint at it, but mostly it's just nonsense. He becomes part of the act. He's a volunteer from the audience who gets hypnotized by Silas. It's a complete shill game.
So the whole thing is fake. The magic is fake.
Completely and utterly fake. And Silas even says that the audience pays to be deceived. They want the fantasy. There's a wild beast show that features a stuffed tiger.
A stuffed tiger, not a real one.
A taxidermy tiger on a little cart, and the audience screams and gasps and faints as if it's a real living predator.
That connects back to the central theme of the book so perfectly. We reconstruct the past, we create these fantasies, because reality is just too hard to bear. The audience prefers the stuffed tiger because a real tiger might actually eat them.
Precisely. And the reality on the road is hard. This is where the tone of the book shifts again. The circus is this little bubble of color and deception and laughter, but just outside the tent, people are starving to death. The famine context becomes brutally explicit here.
The contrast is so stark. The circus moves through a land of rot and silence.
Gabriel notes it very clearly. He says, the potato crop had failed. The fields are black and dead. The people are silent, just standing in doorways, watching the colorful circus wagons pass with these dead eyes. It's a landscape of death.
There's that one scene where they're being chased by a process server. It starts as pure slapstick comedy, Silas running in circles, taunting him, but then they have to flee from actual soldiers.
And the soldiers are not playing. They are there to enforce the eviction of the starving tenants from their homes. The fantasy of the circus is literally floating over a landscape of active genocide. It's incredibly jarring, and Banville wants it to be. He wants you to feel that friction between the magic trick inside the tent and the starving child just outside.
And through all this, the starvation, the fake magic, the soldiers are Gabriel.
Yeah.
Gabriel is still looking for the sister.
It's his obsession,
Yeah.
his quest. He asks everyone he meets about her. He shows them the little photograph. But notice the reaction of the circus folk. Rainbird and Silas, they just laugh at him.
Why do they laugh? I mean, that seems incredibly cruel.
Because he doesn't know her name. He doesn't know what she looks like, really. The photo is of a child. He's searching for a phantom. They're con artists. They see right through him. They know he's chasing a story, not a person.
So we have to ask the big question. Is the sister real?
That is the central ambiguity of the entire quest. And the text strongly suggests that she is not. Or, at the very least, the quest for her is a necessary fantasy.
A necessary fantasy.
Yes. Gabriel needs a reason to keep moving. Birchwood has collapsed behind him. His family is dead or mad or gone. If he doesn't have the quest for the sister, what does he have?
Nothing.
He has nothing. He has to admit that he is completely alone in a dead world. The search for her is what keeps him alive.
So it's a survival mechanism. He invents a goal for himself just to keep from lying down in the ditch and giving up.
Exactly. But eventually, even that breaks down. You can't live on a diet of pure fantasy forever, not even in this world. The reality of the famine, of the suffering, it starts to wear away at the fantasy.
There's that moment of realization for him. He says it so plainly. I admitted at last that the search for this doubtful sister could no longer sustain me.
That's it. That is the moment of maturity, or maybe just resignation. He realizes he can't live in the mosaic anymore. He has to face the cold, bleak sea of the future without his invented quest. He shifts his focus from searching for a person to simply trying to survive.
So let's try to synthesize this whole journey. Gabriel starts in the static, crumbling ruin of the house. He's stuck in the past, stuck in the decay. He moves to the kinetic, chaotic, constant movement of the circus, always moving forward, always performing. And he ends up, where does he end up?
He ends up back with himself, back with his memory. He has this profound realization that memory isn't about retrieving facts from a filing cabinet. The important thing is the act of remembering itself, the act of creation.
We come right back to that quote from the beginning. We imagine that we remember things as they were, while in fact all we carry into the future are fragments.
It leaves us, the readers, questioning the entire story we've just been told. How much of what Gabriel told us was fact? Did his grandmother really explode? Did his aunt really walk serenely into a fire? Did the circus even exist in the way he described it?
Or is this all just a mosaic of a man trying desperately to make sense of his trauma?
It's like looking through a kaleidoscope. The pieces inside are real, the bits of colored glass are real, but the beautiful, symmetrical pattern you see is something we create. We twist the tube to make it look beautiful, to make it make sense.
That is a beautiful way to put it. Birchwood challenges us to accept that all history, our personal history and our national history, is a construct. It's a story we tell ourselves to explain the ruins that are all around us. Gabriel Godkin is a liar, but he's an honest liar. He tells us right from the start that he's lying.
Right.
I am, therefore I think. Or maybe the real thesis is I remember, therefore I am.
Exactly. The memory creates the man, not the other way around.
Well, this has been a wild ride. I mean, from exploding grandmothers to stuffed tigers to the philosophy of Descartes, Birchwood is definitely a trip worth taking.
Absolutely. It's lush, it's haunting, and it's hilarious in the darkest possible way. It really rewards the reader who is willing to just get lost in the maze with Gabriel.
And for you listening, here's a final thought to mull over. If your own memories are just a mosaic, a pattern you created out of fragments, what happens if you shake the kaleidoscope? What other patterns, what other truths are hiding in your own past that you just haven't put together yet?
That is a dangerous and a fascinating thought.
That is our deep dive on John Banville's Birchwood. We really hope you enjoyed the journey into memory and madness and the magic circus.
See you next time.
Take care.